This is the first video in the set of videos about beginning guided reading. So this is about how to use a picture book to teach guided reading. So for an example, I'll be using Bill's First Day. It's written by Cynthia Swain and illustrated by Richard Harrington. It's a D reading level, so it's for really young kids, probably kindergarten or first grade. That's how I'll be using this as an example, but hopefully the ideas and the concepts that I talk about will be applicable for pretty much any picture book that you'll find on any level. So to start off your guided reading, you'll want to be just preparing your students to read. It should take about 3 minutes, and it should be pretty quick. It should be focused on the students being able to comprehend, being ready to understand what the book is about. So just as a quick overview before I start, this book is about a boy named Ling who meets a boy named Bill who meets a boy named Ling on his first day of school, and Ling basically shows him around and introduces him to all of the school workers or school helpers, so like the librarian and the coach and the cook and everything like that. And at the very end of the book, Ling introduces him to his teacher, and Bill says Ling is a good friend. And so it's forming a little bit of a friendship between the two of them. There's a couple different ways that you can start your introduction to guided reading. So one of the ways that's most common in what I've been taught is to do a picture walk. And I think it's taught commonly because it's simple and it also works really well. So this would be for probably your first day of teaching. You could show the students the book and have them either look at yours or look at their own book and flip through, talk about the cover, talk about what's happening, talk about all the different people that he's meeting, and kind of explain to them what they're about to read about. And as they do that, they'll be able to start to freshen up their minds and be ready to read for themselves. Another good way to start this is to elicit prior knowledge. So this could be done by asking questions about how the children could relate to Ling or how they could relate to Bill. To say, have you had a first day of school and how did you feel? A good way to do that would be to show an emoji chart, because kids like to do things like that, and to say, which of these have you felt like? Have you felt scared? Have you felt nervous? Did you feel excited? And help them to connect in that way. Or to connect them to, for example, in this book, the people in the book. To say, have you met the coach? What did you think when you met the coach? How does it help to be able to meet people before you go into your first day? And things like that. So just to sort of bring out prior knowledge, whether it's about the main character, the secondary character, or just the situation that's happening. Have you introduced anybody on their first day of school? Have you ever been a good friend to somebody and helped them when they were feeling nervous? Things like that. So that's another way that you could start off your guided reading. A third way would be to do some sort of a language arts connection. And this is something, like I explained in the introduction video to these sets, it's not something that you're teaching for the first time. If you're teaching something for the first time, it doesn't belong in guided reading. But to say, the other day in language arts we were talking about, for example, in this book a good one is quotation marks. And say, this book uses quotation marks a lot. Who can remind me what quotation marks are for? And the student would say, oh, it's because somebody's saying something. You say, good, it's because somebody's saying something, so you can tell every time you see quotation marks in this, somebody is speaking. And that will help you to be able to comprehend better what's happening. So to do just a quick language arts review, maybe they've been working on VCE words, and you'll say, so just remember, every time you get to these VCE words, it'll help you to comprehend if you know what it's saying there. So as you do that, hopefully the students are getting their brains ready to read, and you can set, as your last part of your introduction, set a purpose for their reading. And this is really important because you and I, even as adults, would be a little bit frustrated if you read through a whole book and then your teacher said, oh yeah, I have this obscure question for you, and you realized, well, I didn't think about that at all during the book, and now they're asking me this question and I'm on the spot and it's awkward and I'm unhappy, and that's definitely how we felt. In fact, you might even be able to relate to that. Well, kids are just the same way. Even 5- and 6-year-olds will still feel frustrated if they get to the end of the book and you spring some unanticipated question on them. So it's good to set them with a purpose and say, you're reading this book so that you can figure out this. And then at the end of guided reading, you can call back that question and say, we were reading to find this. What did you find the answer was? So, for example, with this book, you could say, I want you to read this book paying attention to how Ling feels, or how Bill feels at the end of his first day of school. And then as they're reading, they have to pay attention for that. Or you could say, I want you to read this book paying attention to all the school helpers and what they do. Or I want you to read this book and pay attention to how Ling is a good friend. Or I want you to read this book and pay attention to who might be the most important person for Bill to meet on his first day of school. And just giving them something to look for, something to be thinking about while they're reading. That way they're not just mindlessly reading words, but they're reading with a real purpose. And the more that you actually follow up with your purpose, the more kids will anticipate and actually be thinking about those things while you read. So after you've set your purpose, done your little brief intro, and then set your purpose afterwards, then you can go ahead and let the students all start reading, and that's when we'll start in our intermediate section of guided reading.